Everyone starts their day differently, but at 78, you don't really have many options left. I still wake up at 6 every morning, whether I want to or not. My bones have a rhythm of their own now. The first thing I always do is look out the east window toward the pecan grove. Those trees have been there longer than most people I know. My wife, Margaret, and I planted them the year we moved to Baton Rouge. Back when the soil still smelled fresh and my hands didn't ache from holding a hammer. We had nothing then, except blueprints, a pickup truck, and a promise to build something that would last. 40 years later, the house still stands, a red brick 2-story home I built with my own hands. Every beam measured, every nail driven by sweat and pride. Margaret used to say it was the only place in Louisiana where love and stubbornness are poured into the concrete. She's been gone 9 years now. Cancer took her quietly, like a thief closing a door behind him. Since then, the house feels too big. Every room echoes differently. Most of the old neighbors have either moved to Florida or passed away. The families who replace them are younger, polite, but always in a hurry. They wave, smile, and disappear behind tinted car windows. Only one still visits. Paul Abbott, 66, retired police officer, widower, like me. He comes by on Fridays with a six-pack and stories about his grandkids. He calls me old bricklayer, though I was an engineer, not a mason. We sit on the porch, talk about the saints, complain about the humidity. Sometimes, that's enough to keep the silence away. But the silence always returns. I fix coffee, black as the bayou, and stare at my phone. No messages, no calls. My daughter Camilla hasn't called in 2 weeks. That's not unusual. Our last conversation ended the way they always do, her voice sharp, mine tired. "You've always cared more about your blueprints than your family," she shouted that day. I wanted to tell her the blueprints were for the family. They paid for her college, her first car, the down payment on her house in Lafayette. But experience has taught me that in arguments with your children, facts don't matter, only feelings do. And hers toward me have hardened over the years like cement. The morning light spills through the window, brushing across Margaret's photo on the mantel. She's smiling there, holding baby Camilla in her arms. The picture was taken before everything got complicated, before business trips and long hours made me a stranger in my own house. I rub my chest, that dull ache again, deep under the ribs. The doctor warned me about minor stress. I told him at my age, stress is just another word for living. The clock strikes 7. I grab my hat, the old beige one Margaret bought me when we went fishing on Lake Pontchartrain. She said it made me look like a stubborn boy. Maybe that's why I still wear it. The air outside smells of wet soil and cut grass. I head toward the farmer's market a few blocks away. The walk is slow now, but it keeps me from thinking too much. Along the way, I pass Mrs. LeBlanc's yard. She's planting marigolds again. Paul's out mowing his lawn. "What's up, Harold?" he shouts. "Not dead yet," I yell back, and we both laugh. That joke's gotten old, but so have we. At the market, I buy tomatoes from Hank, who's been selling there for 30 years. They cost more than at the supermarket, but they taste like the ones Margaret used to slice for Sunday breakfast. Sweet, real, honest. "How's Camilla doing?" Hank asks. I lie without blinking. She's fine. Busy with the kids. It's easier that way. No one wants to hear that your daughter barely speaks to you unless she needs something. On the way back, I take the long route along River Road. Cypress trees lean over the water, their roots twisting like old hands. A light breeze carries the smell of magnolia. Then I see it, a silver SUV parked across from my driveway. Windows tinted, engine running. I slow my steps. The driver lowers the window just a crack, enough for a man's eyes to meet mine before the car rolls away slowly. Probably nothing, I tell myself, but something about it sticks like a splinter in my thoughts. When I reach the porch, the ache in my arm sharpens, running up toward my neck. I grip the railing until it fades. Maybe I overdid the walk. Inside, the house greets me with the same quiet hum, the refrigerator, the ticking mantel clock, the faint creak of the floorboards that only I can predict. I set the tomatoes on the counter and glance again at Margaret's picture. Still keeping me on my toes, huh? I whisper. The phone sits silent beside the old rotary lamp. I almost hope it won't ring, because when it does, it's always Camilla, and she never calls with good news. Still, a father's heart never stops waiting. I make myself a sandwich, pour another cup of coffee, and sit by the window watching the pecan trees sway in the afternoon sun. For a moment, everything feels still again, until I notice, out by the road, the same silver SUV parked there once more. This time, the driver doesn't move. By evening, the sky had turned the color of old copper, and the silver SUV was gone. I told myself it was nothing, a realtor maybe, scouting the neighborhood, but a weight sat in my chest all night, pressing harder with every heartbeat. I woke up the next morning before dawn, the world still gray and soft. The ache in my arm had returned, sharper this time. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone I didn't fully recognize, the same blue eyes, but older, tired, rimmed with years of regret. I took 2 aspirin and tried to shake it off. There was work to do. Always something: oiling the gate, replacing the porch bulb, feeding the stray cat that sometimes slept under the truck. Routine keeps you alive when purpose fades. I was halfway down the front steps when the world suddenly tilted. The sky seemed to spin, my knees buckled, and I felt the ground rise to meet me. When I opened my eyes again, everything was blurred, and distant trees bending above me, someone shouting my name, the wail of an ambulance siren slicing through the quiet. It was Paul's voice that anchored me. "Hang on, Harold, don't you die on me now!" The rest came in flashes: oxygen mask, blue uniforms, ceiling lights sliding above me like a tunnel of stars. Then darkness. When I came to, I was staring at a pale ceiling, the faint beeping of a monitor somewhere near my ear. The smell of disinfectant filled my nose. My tongue felt thick, my throat dry. I tried to move, but the right side of my body wouldn't respond. Panic swelled in my chest. A nurse appeared beside me, young, kind-eyed. "Mr. Cormier, you're at St. Vincent's Hospital," she said softly. "You had a mild stroke, but you're lucky your neighbor found you fast." Stroke. The word hit harder than the fall. I tried to ask how bad it was, but only a garbled sound came out. She understood anyway. "You've lost some strength on your right side and a bit of speech. It's common. With therapy, you'll recover." I nodded weakly, though tears of frustration burned my eyes. Later, the doctor came, Dr. Alyssa Navarro. Calm, confident, maybe 40. She explained the details gently, as if talking to a stubborn child. "You need rest, Mr. Cormier. No stress, no heavy lifting. You'll stay with us for observation, then move to rehabilitation." Rest. The one thing I never learned to do. That evening, the door to my hospital room opened, and the smell of expensive perfume filled the air. I didn't need to look, I knew that scent. "Daddy!" Camilla's voice sliced through the sterile quiet like sunlight through blinds. She walked in, her heels clicking on the tile, her smile wide and practiced. "You scared me half to death." I tried to smile, but only half my face obeyed. She leaned down and kissed my forehead lightly, the way someone does when they want an audience to see. "You shouldn't be alone anymore," she said. "I told you that house is too much for you." I wanted to tell her to stop, to just sit and talk, maybe ask how I felt, but she kept going. "You could move to Bay Creek Senior Home. It's beautiful, Daddy. They've got a pool, a library, even art classes. I got some brochures right here." She pulled them out of her purse like trophies, spreading them across my blanket: photos of smiling seniors, manicured lawns, cheerful nurses. I stared at the glossy paper and then at her face. There was concern there, yes, but also calculation. Her eyes darted toward the nightstand where my wallet and phone lay. "Don't worry," she said quickly, noticing my gaze. "I'll take care of everything. You just focus on getting better." That phrase, "I'll take care of everything," had always meant trouble coming. When she left the room to call the doctor, I pressed the nurse button with my left hand. The same nurse came in, smiling. "Need something, Mr. Cormier?" I nodded and motioned for a pen and paper. My hand trembled as I wrote 3 words, each letter painfully slow. "Call Samuel Reed." The nurse tilted her head. "A family member?" I shook my head, then wrote again. "Lawyer. Urgent." Her expression changed. She nodded. "All right. I'll make the call." When she left, I sank back into the pillow, exhausted. Through the hospital window, I could see the orange halo of streetlights over Baton Rouge. I thought about Margaret, about how she would have handled this moment, how she'd probably scold me for being careless with my health, and then hold my hand until I stopped worrying. Instead, I was here, alone, staring at the door my daughter had just walked through, wondering what she would take care of next. The monitor beside my bed beeped steadily, counting time I didn't want to lose. Outside, I could faintly hear the rain begin to fall soft, steady, like footsteps fading away. 3 days passed before I could move my right hand again. My speech was still broken, but at least I could form words, slow, heavy words, that felt like bricks in my mouth. The nurses said I was improving faster than most patients. Maybe it was the old stubbornness in me, refusing to lie down when life tried to knock me flat. Samuel Reed came by that morning. He looked exactly as I remembered, silver hair, sharp gray suit, calm eyes that didn't miss a thing. We'd been friends for over 40 years. He'd handled every legal matter I ever had, from the company contracts to Margaret's will. "Harold, you scared the hell out of us," he said, pulling a chair beside the bed. I smiled crookedly. "Still alive." "Barely," he said, "but I'm glad you called." The nurse said it sounded urgent. I managed to whisper, "Camilla." His brows furrowed. "What about her?" "House," I muttered. "She wants sell." He sighed. "Still? I thought we settled that years ago. Your property's under the preservation clause. She can't do anything without your written consent." I nodded weakly, though deep down I didn't trust that piece of paper to stop her if she was determined enough. Before Samuel left, I grabbed his hand. "Check cameras," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "I will." After he left, I drifted in and out of sleep. Time moved differently in hospitals. The days melted together, separated only by the rhythm of pills and the clinking of food trays. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped. The room glowed with the amber light of sunset, turning everything gold, the walls, the sheets, even the IV pole beside me. That's when my phone rang. For a moment, I hesitated. The screen said, "Camilla." My pulse jumped. I considered ignoring it, but something told me I needed to hear what she had to say. I pressed accept. "Hello, Dad. You sound better," she chirped, her voice unnaturally bright. Getting better," I managed. "Doctor, say, soon." "That's wonderful," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Actually, I called because I have amazing news." I braced myself. "What? News?" She giggled, an excited, almost manic laugh that made my skin crawl. "You're going to be so happy. I'm getting married tomorrow." For a moment I thought I'd misheard her. "Married?" "Yes, to Richard, of course. But this time it's official. We're renewing our vows. A full ceremony. We're doing it by the river. You'll love it." "Tomorrow?" I asked slowly. "Why so fast?" "Oh, it's spontaneous," she said. "And don't worry, everything's taken care of. The catering, the decorations, the photographer, even my dress. I sold your house and car, so now we have plenty of money for everything." The words didn't make sense at first. They just hung in the air like static. Then they landed. My hand clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "You... what?" "I sold them, Daddy. It was the best decision. You can't live there anymore after your stroke. You need proper care. So I talked to a realtor, and we got an amazing deal. $850,000 for the house, $32,000 for the Cadillac. Isn't that incredible?" I felt my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. "You No right. Dad, please don't start, she said quickly. You're still recovering. I had to make these decisions for you. The doctor said you shouldn't live alone. Bay Creek Senior Home is perfect for you, and the down payment is already made. You forged my name, I said, forcing each word through the fog in my throat. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped, her sweet tone breaking for the first time. I found a power of attorney in your old office. It gave me permission to handle your property in case of illness. That paper expired. There was silence on the line. Then she laughed nervously. No, Daddy, you must be mistaken. Anyway, it's done. The buyers are happy. I'm happy. You'll be comfortable, and we can finally breathe. Everything will be fine. I tried to control my breathing, but anger and disbelief burned through me like fever. Camilla, listen to me. Her tone softened again, that syrupy calm she used whenever she wanted to manipulate me. I know change is hard, Daddy. You're scared, but this is for the best. You'll thank me one day. No, I said slowly. You made mistake. Big one. Daddy, stop worrying. You'll just give yourself another stroke. I'm calling lawyer. Now her voice turned sharp. Don't do that. You'll ruin everything. Everything? I asked. Like, what? She hesitated. The sale's already processed. The buyers paid a deposit. If you cancel it, we'll lose money, lots of it. Money, not yours, I said quietly. You're being unreasonable, she snapped. You always were. You built walls around yourself, never letting anyone in. Well, I'm tired of living in your shadow. You can stay angry, but the papers are signed, and the money's in the account. The house is gone, Daddy. It's gone. Something inside me cracked then, not my heart. Not exactly, but something close. A quiet kind of grief that only parents know when they realize the child they raised no longer has a trace of conscience left. Camilla, I whispered, you will regret this. She let out a shaky laugh. You've been saying that my whole life. Goodbye, Daddy. Rest up for the wedding. The call ended. I stared at the screen until it went dark, the echo of her voice still lingering in my ears. My chest hurt again, worse than before, but not from the stroke, from something deeper, colder. I looked toward the window where the evening light had already faded into blue. Outside, the rain started again, gentle and relentless. I reached for the nurse button but stopped halfway. My hand trembled. My voice was barely a whisper. Margaret, I said to the empty room, our girl sold your house. The monitor beeped steadily beside me, counting the seconds as I sat there, an old man in a sterile room, holding a silent phone, realizing he'd just lost the last piece of the life he built with the woman he loved. Morning came slow and gray. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Camilla's voice again, cheerful, confident, cruel. You'll thank me later. The kind of sentence only someone without a conscience could say. When the door opened, I expected another nurse. Instead, I saw Samuel Reed, my lawyer and oldest friend, step inside carrying a folder and his laptop bag. His face told me everything before he even spoke. I got your message, he said quietly, and I checked the registry this morning. You were right to call. I tried to sit up, but the IV tugged at my arm. My voice rasped. She sold it? Samuel sighed. She tried to. It hasn't gone through yet, thank God. But the papers were filed. I stopped them before they hit the final authorization. I stared at him, heart pounding. How? Apparently, your daughter presented an old power of attorney document to a notary dated 2014, the one you used before that Singapore project, remember? My throat tightened. That expired. He nodded. 7 years ago. But she modified the date, and the notary didn't question it. She told them, you had dementia after a stroke. I felt something deep inside me burn, not anger, not grief, but shame. My own blood had turned my illness into a weapon. Samuel set his laptop on the bedside table. I logged into your home security feed. I want you to see this. He turned the screen toward me. There it was. Footage from the foyer. Dated 2 days after my stroke. Camilla walked in wearing sunglasses, trailed by a man with a camera and another woman holding a clipboard. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like gunfire. She looked around, proud, like a queen touring her palace. "That's the realtor," Samuel said. "Name's Janet Lovell. She works for a small agency downtown. The man with the camera is probably a photographer for the listing. They were preparing the online post before the buyer visit." On the screen, Camilla opened my study door, the one I kept locked. She must have found the spare key in the kitchen drawer. She rifled through the filing cabinet, took out a thin blue folder, and handed it to Janet. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "Don't mind the mess. Dad's not really there anymore." Samuel paused the footage. She was preparing a sale for $850,000, listed as an immediate possession transfer. Fast, almost too fast. That's why I caught it before it cleared. I tried to speak, but the words came out raw. "Buyers?" He clicked another window. A woman named Naomi Ferris, mid-30s, small business consultant. Paid a deposit of $120,000 into a holding account managed by Camilla's husband, Richard. That's where the trail starts and where we can stop her. Stop her how? He smiled faintly. That calm, methodical smile I remembered from boardroom battles decades ago. You, my friend, prepared for this long ago without even realizing it. Remember when I convinced you to add a signature verification clause to your trust? I nodded slowly. Margaret insisted. "Good woman," he said. "That clause makes any sale without your notarized thumbprint invalid. Legally, the house can't change ownership, but Camilla doesn't know that, which means we can let her keep digging her own hole." I exhaled slowly, my chest aching from relief and heartbreak all at once. She thinks she's safe. Exactly. And she'll keep moving money, talking, lying. That's when we catch her. Samuel closed the laptop and leaned closer. "I also checked your email backups. She sent a copy of the forged document to the bank. If she tries to access your accounts again, they'll alert me immediately. I've set up a flag." I looked at him, eyes burning. "Why, she do this?" Samuel's tone softened. "You know why? Debt, pride, maybe resentment. But you're not powerless, Harold. Not yet." A nurse entered quietly to check the IV. She looked between us and smiled nervously, probably sensing the tension but saying nothing. When she left, the room felt heavier, the air thicker. Samuel opened his folder again. "I'm filing an emergency injunction. It'll freeze all related assets for 72 hours. That gives us time to bring in the police." I hesitated. "Police? She's my daughter." His gaze didn't waver. "She's also committing felony fraud." I didn't answer. The beeping of the monitor filled the silence. In that steady rhythm, I could almost hear Margaret's voice again, calm and sure. "Sometimes love means saying no, Harold." Finally, I nodded. "Do it." He patted my hand. "Good. I'll handle the paperwork tonight. You rest. Tomorrow morning, we'll know exactly how deep she's in." As he left, I stared at the window. Rain streaked down the glass, blurring the city lights into a watercolor of amber and gray. The faint reflection of my face stared back tired, lined, and strangely resolute. I'd spent my whole life building things, bridges, towers, homes, but never thought I'd have to rebuild something as fragile as trust. Now even that seemed gone. Still, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing I wasn't as defenseless as she thought. Margaret and I had prepared for storms like this. We just never expected the thunder to come from our own daughter's hands. Before I turned off the lamp, I looked at the note Samuel left on the table, his handwriting neat, precise. "Camera's safe. Transfer frozen. Don't answer her calls." But I knew she'd call again. And the next time, I'd be ready. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every tick of the wall clock echoed through the hospital room like a slow countdown. I kept thinking about Margaret, about how she used to say, "The real storms don't come from the sky, Harold. They come from people you love. She was right. The rain stopped around midnight. The city outside had gone still, wrapped in the hush that only hospitals understand. I was drifting toward sleep when my phone buzzed on the tray beside me. Camilla? I stared at her name glowing on the screen. The same way you stare at a flame you know will burn you. I hesitated, then swiped to answer. Her voice was shaky, almost slurred. Dad? Are you awake? I didn't answer. Please don't hang up, she said quickly. I need you to listen. My throat tightened. What you want? There was a pause, then a long sigh. I made a mistake. Okay? The sale, it's already done. The money's been wired. You can't undo it. I felt my chest tighten again. Why? You do it? Because we had no choice, she snapped, her voice breaking between panic and anger. Richard's partners were going to sue us. He promised me this new business deal in Dallas would fix everything. But he needed capital, fast. I couldn't just let our family fall apart. Family, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. You mean his family? Don't talk like that, she pleaded. It's still us. I thought if I handled the sale quietly, you'd forgive me when you saw how it helped. You'll have the best care, I swear. I didn't mean to hurt you. I almost laughed, but it came out as a cough. You sold your mother's house for a party. It's not just a party, she said, and her tone changed again, softer, almost rehearsed. We're renewing our vows, Daddy. After all we've been through, I deserve something good. One real day of happiness. Happiness, I said, the word bitter on my tongue. Bought with lies. Please, stop, she whispered. You don't understand. You never do. Everything's already arranged, the venue, the dress, the guests. It's tomorrow evening, Baton Rouge Riverfront Hotel. We'll make it right after that, I promise. I could hear something in her voice, not guilt, not love, but fear, the kind that comes when a lie starts falling apart. Camilla? I said slowly, steadying my breath. You think you can buy peace with stolen money? I just want my life back, she said, and hung up before I could answer. The line went dead. The silence after her voice felt heavier than any word she'd spoken. A knock came at the door a few minutes later. It was Samuel, coat still damp from the rain. Couldn't sleep either, he said. You look like you've seen a ghost. Camilla called. I figured she would. He pulled out his phone. And I have something for you. He tapped a few buttons and turned the screen toward me. A new set of security clips. This time, from the camera above my garage, time-stamped 2 hours earlier. There she was again. Camilla. In the dark. Loading boxes into her SUV. My old briefcase. A stack of photo albums. Even the grandfather clock Margaret loved. She moved fast, looking over her shoulder every few seconds. Then another car pulled up Richard's, the headlights cutting through the rain. He stepped out, tall, confident, holding something wrapped in plastic. Samuel paused the video. That's a money bag, he said quietly. See the label? First Parish Bank. That's where Naomi Ferris wired the deposit. He's moving it out tonight. Where they go? Houston, probably. He has family there. But we'll find them. Samuel sat down beside me, his tone turning sharper. The good news is, Naomi called me an hour ago. She's uncomfortable. Says something about the sale feels wrong. She wants to meet you in person. I frowned. Why? She didn't say. But she sounded sincere. And Harold, there's one more thing. I reached out to Detective Marla DuPont at the Financial Crimes Unit. She's willing to open a case immediately. All she needs is your permission. I closed my eyes for a moment. The thought of seeing my daughter in handcuffs made my stomach turn, but then I remembered the video, her face calm, unbothered, while she packed my life into boxes. I opened my eyes again. Do it. Samuel nodded. We'll let them believe the deal's still alive. Naomi's meeting us tomorrow at the diner by the river. Quiet place, easy to control. Marla's team will be nearby. If Camilla or Richard show up to finalize anything, we'll have them. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. We'll end this where it started at their wedding. I looked out the window. The horizon was pale gray, the first light of dawn creeping over Baton Rouge. For the first time in days, I felt something like purpose returning. Not revenge exactly, but a need for truth. I turned back to Samuel. If Margaret were here, she'd tell you to see this through, he said gently. She'd want you to protect what you built. He was right. I nodded slowly, the tremor in my hand steadying just enough to lift the cup of water beside me. Then, tomorrow. Tomorrow, he echoed, standing up. Rest now. You'll need your strength. When he left, I sat in silence, the city waking up beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, my daughter was rehearsing her wedding vows, the same day she'd find out the truth about the house, the money, and the father she thought she could outsmart. I whispered to the empty room, my voice thin, but steady. Happy wedding day, Camilla. The next evening arrived wrapped in soft, southern heat, the kind that clings to your collar and makes even a breath feel heavy. From my hospital window, the sunset painted Baton Rouge gold, the river glimmering like melted copper. Samuel came early. He helped me into a pressed shirt and a navy jacket. My right hand still shook when I buttoned it, but I refused his help. If I'm going, I told him, I'm going standing. He smiled faintly. Then let's make sure tonight counts. Detective Marla Dupont was waiting outside in an unmarked sedan. She was tall, mid-40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through people. Mr. Cormier, she greeted, you don't have to do this in person. We can handle it from here. I do, I said simply. If this ends tonight, I'll see it end with my own eyes. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right then, let's make it clean. We drove toward the Riverfront Hotel, the same one where Margaret and I used to attend charity galas decades ago. Funny how time turns every happy place into a ghost when you're old enough. The hotel glowed with wedding lights, strings of warm bulbs hanging over the patio, jazz music floating through the air. Guests in linen suits and pastel dresses laughed under the magnolia trees. From a distance, it looked perfect, almost holy. Camilla always did know how to make things look beautiful. I stayed in the car while Samuel and Marla coordinated with her team. Naomi Ferris, the supposed buyer, was already there, posing as a guest. She wore a pale blue dress and a calm, unreadable expression. Beneath her bouquet, a hidden microphone blinked faintly. At exactly 6:30, the ceremony began. Camilla appeared at the top of the steps in a white lace gown, her hair curled and pinned with pearls. Richard stood beside the minister, tan and self-assured, wearing the smug grin of a man who believed he'd gotten away with everything. The string quartet began to play. I watched through the car window as she walked down the aisle, smiling at the guests, half of whom were investors, not friends. A carefully staged performance for the world to see. Samuel whispered to me, "The notary's here. They're signing right after the ceremony, during the toast. That's our moment." I nodded, though my throat had gone dry. The vows were short, mechanical, full of hollow promises, to love and to cherish, for richer or for poorer. I wanted to laugh. They didn't mean a single word. When the applause came, the crowd turned toward the reception area. The champagne flowed. The band struck up a lively tune. Richard took the microphone to make a toast. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To family, to loyalty, and to a future built on trust." I could see Marla in the background, shaking her head slightly, muttering, "You can't make this stuff up." Then the notary stepped forward with a brown envelope. "If I could have the couple's signatures," he said cheerfully, "for the transfer confirmation." Camilla smiled, radiant. "Of course." She leaned over the table, pen in hand, her diamond ring catching the light. Richard signed beside her. That's when Naomi moved in. Calm, poised, her voice perfectly steady. "Mrs. Cormier," she said gently, "before you finish that signature, there's something you should know." Camilla blinked. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Naomi smiled faintly. "My name's Naomi Ferris, the buyer of your father's house. But I'm also a financial investigator with the state's Elder Fraud Division. For a moment, the only sound was the band playing softly in the distance. Then Richard laughed short, brittle. What kind of joke is this? Naomi held up a small device, a recording pen, the kind that comes with evidence. You see, Mrs. Cormier, your father's property is under legal protection. Any attempt to transfer or sell it without his direct consent constitutes felony fraud. The crowd had gone silent. Camilla froze, pen still hovering above the paper. Naomi's voice sharpened. And for the record, this entire conversation is being recorded under authorization from the Louisiana Financial Crimes Unit. Camilla's face drained of color. Richard's smirk vanished. From the back of the courtyard, Marla's voice rang out. Detective DuPont, Baton Rouge Police. Nobody move. 3 officers stepped out from behind the garden archway, badges glinting under the lights. Gasps rippled through the guests. The band stopped mid-song. Camilla turned, eyes wide, searching the crowd, and then she saw me. I was standing by the walkway, leaning on my cane, Samuel beside me. The air between us felt heavier than the night itself. Dad? She whispered, her voice cracking. You came? I didn't answer. She stumbled forward, tears already streaking her makeup. Daddy, please. I didn't mean, I just wanted to fix everything. Richard tried to back away, muttering, This is ridiculous. But 2 officers grabbed his arms before he could move. Marla walked up to the table, collected the forged papers, and looked Camilla in the eye. You'll need to come with us, ma'am. Camilla's knees buckled. No, please, Daddy, help me, please. Her voice echoed across the courtyard, raw and desperate, but it didn't sound like my daughter anymore. It sounded like a stranger using her face. I stepped closer, just enough for her to hear me over the commotion. I built that house with my hands, I said quietly. Your mother's hands planted every tree around it. You didn't just sell a house, Camilla. You sold your family's soul. She sobbed harder. I'm sorry, I didn't know. But I could tell she did. She'd known the whole time. The officers led her toward the exit. The guests watched, stunned, unsure whether to whisper or pretend they hadn't seen. The bride in white, leaving her own wedding in handcuffs. Naomi turned to me once the courtyard cleared. I'm sorry it had to end this way, Mr. Cormier. I nodded slowly. No, I said. It had to end somewhere. The breeze from the river carried the faint sound of jazz from a bar downstream. The lights above us flickered, casting long shadows across the empty tables. Samuel helped me back to the car. Neither of us spoke for a while. As we drove away, I looked out the window at the glowing hotel, fading into the night. Somewhere inside, people were still talking, gossiping about the old man who brought the police to his daughter's wedding. But I didn't care. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something close to peace, not joy, not victory, but a quiet certainty that truth had finally stood up. And as the city lights blurred past, I whispered to the night, Rest now, Margaret. It's done. The next morning, Baton Rouge was quiet. The kind of silence that follows a storm, when even the birds seem too cautious to sing. I sat at my kitchen table, with a cup of black coffee, cooling between my hands. Samuel was across from me, reading the morning paper. The headline stretched across the front page in bold letters. Bride and groom arrested at Riverfront Hotel in property fraud case. Beneath it, a photo. Camilla, her hair disheveled, mascara running down her cheeks as 2 officers guided her into the back of a police car. I couldn't look at it for long. Samuel folded the paper and said softly, It's going to move fast now. DuPont's team has all the evidence, the forged signatures, the bank transfers, the camera footage, even Richard's text messages to the notary. I nodded but didn't speak. My throat felt like sandpaper. They'll face multiple counts, he continued. Fraud, falsifying legal documents, elder exploitation, property theft. Richard's already trying to cut a deal. I stared into my coffee, the reflection of my own tired eyes looking back. And Camilla? She's refusing to cooperate, Samuel said, but she's in denial. Thinks it's all a misunderstanding. She told the detectives you would forgive her. I gave a bitter laugh that sounded more like a cough. Forgiveness? She's still counting on that. Samuel leaned back. You don't have to decide anything today. Let the law take its course. You've done enough. But he was wrong. I hadn't done enough. Not for Camilla. Not for Margaret. Not even for myself. The guilt was heavier than any anger I'd felt. I thought about every missed recital. Every night I'd stayed late at work, building bridges and towers instead of memories. Maybe this was my punishment, a lifetime of construction, only to watch the foundation of my own family collapse. At noon, Detective DuPont called. Mr. Cormier, she said, we've taken statements from both suspects. Richard confessed to initiating the sale. He admitted they spent part of the money paying off debts and transferring the rest to an offshore account. We've already frozen it. And my daughter? I asked quietly. She claims she didn't know the documents were forged, DuPont said. But we have her on video, telling the notary the paperwork was old family business. It's enough to prove intent. She'll be charged, but the prosecutor's office is open to discussing leniency if you request it. I didn't answer right away. I watched a cardinal land on the apple tree outside the window, one of the trees Margaret and I had planted 40 years ago. The branches were heavy with green fruit, waiting for autumn. I'll think about it, I said finally. That evening, Samuel drove me to the police station to collect my recovered belongings. The evidence locker clerk placed the items carefully on the counter: my briefcase, Margaret's watch, the deed papers, and the blue folder that had started it all. When I opened the folder, something new caught my eye: an unsigned letter in Camilla's handwriting. The paper was creased, smudged, and half crumpled like she'd started it and never finished. It read, Dad, I'm sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I just wanted to fix everything. I didn't mean to take from you. I just wanted you to see that I could make things right, that I wasn't a failure. I never stopped wanting you to be proud of me. See. The ink bled near the bottom, maybe from tears, maybe from spilled wine. I didn't know. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. Outside, the air smelled of rain again. The city lights shimmered in puddles along the street. For a moment, I thought I saw Margaret's reflection beside mine in the glass door, calm, forgiving, unshaken. Harold, Samuel said gently as he opened the car door for me, you can still show mercy, you know. Justice doesn't have to be cruel. Justice, I repeated softly. Or mercy. I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. The trial was set 2 months later. It drew more attention than I wanted. Local reporters called it the wedding fraud case, hungry for spectacle. I stayed away from the courtroom most days, sending Samuel in my place. But on the day of sentencing, I went. Camilla sat at the defense table in a gray prison uniform, her hair pulled back, her face pale. Richard sat beside her, eyes downcast, his lawyer whispering something in his ear. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. The gavel struck once. Mr. and Mrs. Cormier, the judge began, this case represents not just a violation of law, but of trust, a father's trust, a family's legacy. The court has reviewed your plea agreements and the evidence submitted. Mr. Richard Cormier, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison with parole eligibility after 3. Richard lowered his head. The judge turned to Camilla. Mrs. Cormier, while you participated knowingly, your attorney has argued that your father's testimony and his written request for leniency should be taken into account. Therefore, your sentence will be reduced to 1 year in a correctional facility, followed by community service and probation. I felt Samuel glance at me, but I kept my eyes on Camilla. She looked shocked, tears pooling in her eyes as the gavel fell again. Afterward, when they led her away, she turned, once searching the crowd, and found me. Our eyes met for a moment that felt like eternity. She mouthed 2 words I'll never forget: thank you. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. But something inside me loosened, like a knot finally coming undone. Outside the courthouse, Samuel said quietly, you did the right thing. Maybe, I replied. But right doesn't always feel good. He placed a hand on my shoulder. No. But sometimes it heals. That night, I sat on the porch of my home, watching the apple tree sway under the silver moonlight. The wind smelled of rain and earth, of beginnings and endings. Somewhere in that rustling breeze, I thought I heard Margaret's voice again. You can build new bridges, Harold, even between broken hearts. And for the first time since the stroke, I believed her. A full year had passed since that night at the Riverfront Hotel, the night my daughter walked down the aisle in a white dress and walked out in handcuffs. Seasons changed, and so did I. My body healed slower than I wanted, but my spirit recovered faster than I ever thought it could. The doctors said I was a medical miracle. I told them they were wrong. I was simply a man who still had unfinished work to do. I sold the old house not long after the trial ended. Not out of anger, but because I finally understood that walls and roofs don't hold our memories, we do. The home Margaret and I built was sacred, but it was also full of ghosts. I used part of the money to buy a small cottage on the outskirts of Street Francisville, overlooking the Mississippi. A humble place, just 2 bedrooms and a screened porch that faced the river. Mornings there were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat again. Samuel helped me move in. He and his wife came by on weekends with fresh pies or to sit on the porch and talk about old times. Paul Abbott still called every Sunday from Chapel Hill, checking on me like a brother. As for Camilla, she was released from the correctional facility after 9 months for good behavior. I didn't visit her there. I wasn't ready. Maybe she wasn't either. But we exchanged letters. At first, they were awkward, short, polite, full of small talk about weather and food. But slowly, her words grew more honest. Dad, I joined a rehabilitation program for women in debt recovery. I'm helping others rebuild their credit and start over. I think Mom would have liked that. Another letter came 3 weeks later. I'm volunteering at the parish youth center now. Sometimes, when I see those girls trying to fix their lives, I realize how lost I was. I wish I had listened sooner. Those letters didn't erase what she'd done, but they began to mend something fragile that I thought was beyond repair. In early spring, she wrote again. I'd like to visit, if you'd let me, just to talk. When I read that line, my hands trembled. I folded the letter and left it on the table for 2 days before answering. When I finally wrote back, all I said was, "The door's open." Camilla came on a warm April afternoon. I watched her car pull up the dirt road, sunlight glinting off the hood. For a moment, she looked just like her mother, nervous but determined. She stepped out wearing jeans and a pale blue blouse, her hair pulled back simply, no makeup, no jewelry, just her. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. I didn't trust my voice, so I only nodded and opened the screen door. We sat on the porch for a while without talking, listening to the wind through the cypress trees. She looked older, not in years, but in spirit. The arrogance, the sharpness that used to fill every word, was gone. Finally, she broke the silence. I know sorry doesn't mean much after everything I did, but I am. I really am. I nodded. I know. She blinked, surprised. You believe me? I do now, I said. You didn't just say it. You lived it. Tears welled up in her eyes. I lost everything, Dad. The house, the car, Richard, he's gone. He filed for divorce from prison. I had nothing left. And somehow, that's what made me see it all, how much I took for granted. How much I took from you. I looked out toward the river, the sunlight dancing across its surface. Sometimes, I said quietly, you have to lose everything before you can see what's worth keeping. We sat together until dusk. She helped me water the small vegetable garden behind the house, laughing when the hose sprayed her shoes. For the first time in years, her laugh sounded real. Before she left, she handed me a small wooden box. I found this in a pawn shop downtown, she said. It had Mom's initials carved inside. I think it's the one I sold. I opened it carefully. Inside was Margaret's old silver locket, tarnished, but still beautiful. My breath caught in my chest. Camilla, I whispered. She smiled through her tears. I thought you should have it back. It belongs here. When she drove away that evening, I didn't feel anger or even relief. I felt peace. Quiet, steady peace, the kind that comes when you stop fighting what's already behind you. Months later, I received another envelope, this time from the University of Lafayette. Inside was a certificate naming a new scholarship fund, the Margaret Cormier Memorial Grant, established anonymously to support young women rebuilding after hardship. I didn't need to ask who created it. I just smiled and whispered, "Good girl." Now, a year later, as I sit on this porch watching the sunset over the Mississippi, I finally understand what this journey was about. It wasn't about money, or property, or even betrayal. It was about learning when to let go and when to hold on. I lost my house, my pride, even my faith in my daughter, but I gained something greater, the chance to start over. People think forgiveness is about the other person. It's not. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks your own cage. If Margaret were here, she'd probably say, "I took too long to figure that out." And she'd be right. But I think she'd also be proud not of the man I was, but of the man I finally became. The wind picks up, rustling through the apple trees I planted last fall, small saplings, but growing strong. I imagine they'll outlive me, just like the ones at the old house. And maybe, one day, Camilla's children, my grandchildren, will sit under them and remember that even broken families can bloom again. I raise my cup of coffee to the fading light and whisper the lesson I've learned the hard way. You can rebuild anything, even love, if you start with truth. The river keeps flowing, the sun dips below the horizon, and for the first time in years, I feel free. Free to forgive. Free to live. Free to begin again.